Hey everybody, welcome to this week's video. And today we are going to talk about how to lead yourself. And if you are like me, you've probably realized that yourself is probably the hardest person to lead and also the most important. And today we're going to talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion through a different lens. I'm going to introduce this idea of inner DEI, inner diversity, equity, and inclusion, because this field of DEI has been picking up and gaining a lot of momentum, and it's important. It's way more than a buzzword, and it's important, yes, of course, because honoring everyone's voice is just the right thing to do, but checking a box, making a strategic hire is not actually doing that. And the reason why a lot of DEI trainings don't actually work and don't actually move the needle, make people feel more heard and accepted and get results is because they kind of end up being performative and they don't get to the root of things. So today we're going to be talking about embodiment and inner DEI and the diversity, equity, and inclusion of your inner world. So before we dive into that, I just want to remind everyone and remind you that we are doing a giveaway every 300 subscribers, giving away a 90-minute human design leadership session where we'll dive in and explore your unique energetic leadership style and how to utilize it to be the best leader you can be, the one you're naturally here to be. So if that excites you, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment. I'll talk about that again at the end of the video. Let's dive in. So inner DEI. And in order to set this context, like what does that even mean, inner diversity, equity, and inclusion? Well, it's really challenging to hold space for others and all of their diversity and all of their different ways of thinking and perspectives, and to hold space for a lot of different perspectives to come together and coalesce into something greater than any one person can if we can't first do that within. And what I mean by that is that we have a lot of voices in here. And yes, you can relax. You're not alone. You have a lot of voices. You're not crazy. It doesn't mean anything. It just is. And what are all those voices? So let's use a simple example. When you learn to drive, at first you have to think really, really hard about driving. Then after decades of driving, it's automatic. You get in the car, you turn the key, you hit the pedals, you move the shift, and you're driving. And it becomes an unconscious pattern. Electricity fires in your nervous system when you see the car door, when you open it, when you get in, turn the key. These are all autopilot mechanisms that kick off, and they all have neural networks devoted to that process, to that function. The same thing is true when you're a child and you have challenging circumstances going on in your life. So depending on what your childhood was like, if you were met with anger or sadness or punishment or ignoring, or you had to grow up really quickly and take care of your siblings, or you have a single parent who was really struggling, whatever the situation, there were ways in which your parents doing the best they could. This isn't about bad parenting. This isn't about any judgment. This is about just looking at reality with care and compassion and gentleness, but not shying away from it. And so whatever happened in your childhood, whatever ways that it wasn't safe for you, to be fully expressed, to be your full self, whatever ways that you were told to conform, to put that your natural talents and what excited you were hobbies and wouldn't make you money, and to go take the safe career and get the degree, all of that. The ways society may have told you, depending on your race, your gender, etc., what your worth or value was. All the ways that we've had to earn our worth and prove ourselves that you may have. Every time that happens, a little neural network gets created to how to navigate this situation. Just like when you first get into a car, your neural network starts forming. How do I navigate this situation? How do I drive around this situation? The same thing happens. You learn to suppress yourself. You learn to hide, maybe. You learn to shut down. You learn to fight back. You learn whatever it is, whatever those mechanisms are. And often, some common mechanisms that people develop are urgency, defensiveness, busyness, overwhelm, trying to prove oneself through achievement. These are some typical ones that I see all the time. And they're really good at getting you where you've gotten to. They've been really good at getting you here. They're not going to get you where you want to go next because things are shifting. And this is where the inner DEI work comes in. But there's just one more idea I want to introduce here, which is that This is all ancestral momentum. This is all collective momentum, societal momentum for thousands of years. This is going back to the advent of agriculture over 13,000 years ago, or around 13,000 years ago, when human populations started to grow. And we started to try to figure out how do we navigate this? How do we grow enough food for these bigger people? And then the first city, and then sea trade, and then money, and then competition, and then all of the ways that we've learned to navigate growth and advancing technology. And we haven't always been that great about it. And our ancestors weren't always that great about it, but they went through a lot, just like we do. The bubonic plague, imagine that level of trauma and death and challenge that happened in Europe, where all the fighting for scarcity, all of the people trying to make it, and the beginnings of colonialism and slavery, and all of these ways that that our ancestors suppressed each other, and but also the ways that even happens within tribes in what is now the Americas, and in other regions, the way Europeans enslaved themselves. So it's part of this growth of humanity that we went through, of needing to work hard and to suppress ourselves and to suppress each other in order to survive and thrive. Now, I say all that. I know that might not have been the most pleasant thing to listen to there, but I say all that with love and compassion and gentleness, because a lot of times I think we either ignore history because it's too hard to look at, or we start judging it. And what happens when you do that is we also judge ourselves, because we are perpetuating that history. You're perpetuating that history. I'm perpetuating that history without even realizing it, because it's systemic. We're not bad people. Our parents weren't bad people. Our teachers weren't bad people. They might have guided us in a direction that wasn't ideal, but it was the way they knew their best to help us be safe. So with all these pieces in play, we have a lot of these inner voices. So generational ancestral momentum leading to the moment of your birth, leading to your parents raising you the way they did in order to doing their best based on how they were raised, and et cetera, rooted in all these challenging times in our human history where we made some unfortunate choices out of fear and scarcity and survival. Coming to this point now with you watching this video, you have a lot of neural networks that have learned to protect yourself, to suppress yourself, to suppress others, to get defensive around others, to try to prove your worth in ways that block the natural flow. And up until now, that has served you well and got you to where you are, but it's not going to get you to where you're going, because the shift from the information age to the age of AI is happening. And the industrial age and information age, as a collective, we were still playing out that, we need good soldiers, we need conformity, we need people that can get work done and follow rules and raise their hand and not be too creative, not be too innovative. That was the path I followed. I listened to my guidance counselor, ignored my heart, went into technology and went into management, and didn't really like it. I didn't like being in that setting, in that industry. But I did it because I was promised safety, right? Conformity in exchange for safety. That game is changing. And thank God, because the reason diversity, equity, and inclusion is gaining momentum, thank God, is because people are finding their voices and finding the courage to speak out in a world that it isn't really safe for them to do so. And they're fighting for their voice to be heard. And every voice is important. And every voice on your team is important. Every voice around you is important. Every voice in your psyche is important. And it starts there. All of these inner children, all of these neural networks that you created at age 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 13, 18, 22, that created ways to navigate a world that told you to suppress yourself to be successful. You figured out ways, you built strategies, that electricity fired on autopilot, and now it's holding you back. Because in the age of AI, it's asking that you are able to hold space for diverse perspectives, cultures, choices, and voices. It's demanding that you allow for innovation and creativity, not only your own, but the others around you. So the way to do that is to start with you, to learn how to lead yourself. And the way to lead yourself is the same way you lead others in this emerging age, and that's through gentleness and compassion, creating space for all of your voices to be heard. This is where the inner DEI comes in. Inner diversity, equity, and inclusion, the diverse voices, ages, wisdoms, talents, childlike wonder, all that you have in there, your natural talents, your shadows, your like all of those voices, to hear them. Just like when I shared that history, that really challenging history, to share it without judging it, to sharing it without feeling guilty, to not turn your eye, to look it in the face and say, wow, I am using busyness to suppress myself. That's okay. I do get defensive sometimes when my team or my partner or my boss or comes up with an idea that feels like it's challenging me. I get defensive. It's hard to listen in those moments, and that's okay. To be able to build your capacity to be compassionate and look directly at your patterns, the unconscious autopilot patterns you learned to get through your childhood, that is emergent leadership. That is the leadership we need, the ability to be in the body, to realize that those patterns keep you above the sensation. They keep you above the reality of what's happening. And when you can build your capacity to breathe into the actual discomfort in the chest and the gut that is causing you to move into old protection patterns and coping mechanisms, because your inner voices see a danger that is rooted in the past that isn't as dangerous now. Because now, in the emerging age of AI, those that future-proof themselves, the leaders and teams, are those that create space for innovation, creativity, uniqueness in each voice. So the only way to do that is it's not through another 10-step plan or another like methodology or thing. It's about practice, being present with your body, to notice when you're about to go into that reaction mode, you're about to cope through defensiveness or overwork or eating food or watching TV, whatever it is, and to just take one breath, to start there, to be present to what's happening, to realize the patterns of the industrial age, the information age, and our past, the ancestral momentum that is still moving. We can slow it down with a breath. Presence. The ability to be present and not react is what's going to reduce silos. It's what's going to reduce infighting. It's what's going to create space for the most optimal creativity, impact, service, and profit of you and your team. There's nothing to learn. It's a practice. So can you practice with one more breath today, starting with yourself? Because if you have any chance to do this with your team, you first have to be able to do it with yourself, with the parts of you that frustrate you, with the parts of you that upset you, that you think should be better. Whenever you hear yourself with negative self-talk, that's the moment. This is the most important, to create space for all of your voices, all of the patterns, all of the fears, all the insecurities, to be able to talk about it with confidence and not victimhood, to say, hey, I get defensive sometimes. Wow, when you said that, I got defensive. When you said that, it made me scared, and I went to go try to prove myself through this work. To be having the courage to share that, because it's real. That's emergent leadership. That's the kind of leadership we need. I hope this something hit home for you. It's a big topic, obviously. This was just touching the surface. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. And just one more reminder before we close out the video, we are doing that giveaway at 1,600 and 1,900 subscribers. Every 300 subscribers, a human design leadership session. All you got to do to enter the giveaway is subscribe, leave a comment, hit the like button. We do videos like this every week. I hope this helped, and I hope you're having a beautiful day.